the latest episode of KapVista Klips. Today we're here with the team from Localvolts. How are you guys?
We are well. How are you, Daniel?
Good, good. I want to get into this, and I want to find out about you, your background, your history, and then what is the story behind Localvolts. So I'm gonna throw it over to you. Give me your intro. Give me your story, and let's get into
Well,
it.
thank you, Daniel. I guess I'll have a go first at this. My name is Jitendra. I came up with the crazy idea of Localvolts some time ago. But just to tell a bit about myself, I was born in India quite some time ago, and then moved to Canada as a child to a place called Winnipeg. The things I experienced kind of proved to me it was probably the coldest place on earth that exists, not that far away from Siberia. But finished my high school there and went to first year of university at University of Manitoba in engineering. After that, we moved to Montreal. I went to McGill University and got myself a mechanical engineering degree from McGill University, which is one of the three universities in Montreal. After, I guess, on my final year of university, I went to Sweden. I worked with industrial robots for a company called ASEA Brown Boveri, really building control loops for industrial robots. That was a bit of fun stuff, applied maths that we had learned to school in real world environment, which was fun. The first full-time job I had was building flight simulators. Our company was called CA Electronics at the time, still exists, the number one flight simulator manufacturer in the world. So the flight simulators are really training devices for pilots. So I programmed a part of the subsystems on Boeing 747s and fighter planes. So the interesting thing about that work was it really taught me the value of mathematics and simulation, how you can create and mimic reality through maths, and how close you can get reality to I would say models to be behaving like the real world. Gave me confidence in how mathematics works. So did that for a few years, and then decided to go back to school to a place called University of Western Ontario, in the south of Ontario, a place called London, and to get a graduate degree in business administration. When I was over there, I was fortunate enough to be, I guess, doing the transition of the Iron Curtain coming down, and we took advantage of that, and we created a business school for Russians. So we went to the Soviet Union in Moscow and Leningrad when Gorbachev was still in power, and we set up a business school in about eight different locations. So this was a project led by about 5 of us students. The total team was 30 students, but it was created by 5 of us as a venture. It was probably the first kind of project of its type. Really fun. We did that for a while, came back. 2 weeks later, Gorbachev was no longer in power. So the question was asked whether there was any correlation. The classic thing, you leave a building and the fire starts afterwards. Have no idea what caused it, but it was fun. The other thing that I was involved with in my years as a business student is I worked for corporate finance at ABB head office in Zurich. That was in the controllers department. So we essentially set up financial structures, and particularly for all the Eastern European businesses that the company was acquiring. I was part of the team that set up all the balance sheets and the valuations of acquiring companies from state-owned enterprises from the former Eastern Bloc countries. So that was kind of a bit of an experience as well. Again, all of this stuff was the commonality was nothing that I was doing was done before. It was all new stuff with all the organizations that we were doing. So came back, finished off university, my graduate degree, and then went back to, I guess, CA Electronics. This time it's in the sales and marketing department. And the first thing that I was involved with over there was commercializing and selling. We were creating a product around synthetic visual systems, image generators, sort of like the virtual world. You project, you see, you visualize the world that the plane is flying in. Okay, so this was a new product that the company was creating. In the past, we used to buy it from other people. We had decided to build our own. So it was the whole thing about launching and getting the product to market was what I was involved in. We also branched out into entertainment stuff. We saw applications in, for example, video games. And this was video games before they really existed. This was, I guess, millions of dollars worth of immersive technology that, for example, companies like Walt Disney Imagineering were doing research in. This was the kind of stuff in the development arm they were doing before the things became mass market. So we were, again, at the cutting edge of before video games really become immersive and what we see them right now. Subsequently, I got involved in the utility side of the business. We were selling control systems to manage power grids. One day my boss came to me, threw down this request for proposal from some company based in a place called Brisbane. Had to look it up in the map. Turned out it was in Queensland, in Australia. And I said, hey, Australia could be nice. Showed up over there, got off the plane, and 6 months later, we had the biggest single control system project the company had globally. That project was, in fact, written up in the Financial Times London because of the waves we made by an unknown company getting into the business and changing the whole dynamics of how this business was done globally. That also led for me personally to move to Australia, because when I was working, flying in from Montreal to Australia, that was the period of the transition. The Australian power industry was being desegregated and decoupled. The national electricity market in the mid-90s was being set up. What that meant was the whole power trading side of things were being set up. The physical wires companies were being separated from the generators and from the retail arms. Okay, so it was a fun time. Came over here. We had just established a company for defense purposes in the country, and I set up the energy arm of the local operations for the business. The next gig I had was within our own company, and we had a sonar and a sensor business out of Adelaide. And it needed a bit of direction. We had purchased that business some time ago from the Department of Defense of Australia, and I was given the task to find a way, strategic, get rid of it, fix it, turn it around, do something with it. Spent about 10 months on the project, really set it up, stabilized the business, and then set it up for sale. So that was really my contribution to the exercise. After that, I left that company and got back into the energy field. Met a bunch of people out of Melbourne, and they had this crazy idea of taking negative energy and paying businesses to not consume energy. So crazy concept. I'll pay you, so please turn your freezer off, and I'll pay you to do that, or turn your industrial process off. So I said, interesting idea. How would that all work? So the concept is in power systems, what you want to have, you got to have an instant continuous balance of supply and demand. It's like a seesaw. If the demand is increasing, for example, on hot days or in the evenings when everybody's coming home, then what you need to do is you need to add to your generation mix, produce more power to meet the demand, or you can get people to reduce the demand. Okay, and how do you make people reduce demand? Well, you got to make it worth their while. You got to pay for it. So that was easy. We can find people and say, if we pay you the money, but the challenge was, how do we source the funds to pay people for it? Okay, And because there was no regulatory framework in Australia to pay for that thing, so what we had to do is we had to look at the market the way it was, which is very much a Australian market, is very liberal market. It's a financial electricity market, it's a financial market, and we effectively created a risk instrument. We created a derivative using negative energy, and we sold that derivative product to incumbent retailers as a risk instrument for them. And this is how we kind of created the business of demand response in the country. My time with that company ended because we decided collectively I guess we needed capital to grow, and the way to do that was to sell the company to an American outfit, which was also in that same business, which was called a company called Enernoc. We exited out of that business, and that company subsequently was sold by Enernoc to the Italians, company called Enel, and they have a division X, which is the new type of businesses in the electricity field. So that company still exists out of Melbourne. They're very much in the whole mix of things right now, and they're known as NLX in Australia. Once after finishing that gig, I guess the thing that I discovered in that exercise was the thing of the demand side or the consumer participation in the energy field. It was possible, it's viable, and people want to do it. Okay. The thing that I thought was missing was opportunity for people to do it. The other dynamic that was going on at the time was the fact that the solar industry was taking off. The whole thing about rooftop solar, people, the government giving good feed-in tariffs, mandatory feed-in tariffs to encourage people to install solar was coming in. And that started to create a bit of questions in my mind, what the world would look like when there were more and more people actually investing their own assets, and the moms and dads putting money in the energy field, and how the world should run given that. So I will leave it at that in terms of introduction, and because that was really the idea, the question mark to take us to the Localvolts world. But I'll pass it on to my partner Joe, whom I met quite some time ago through a mutual friend. He said that you guys should have coffee together, and here we are. But over to you, Joe.
Okay, thanks, Dick. All right, so I grew up and studied in Victoria and in Australia, and came out with a computer science degree. Moved to Sydney for a job in the Macquarie Bank Quantitative Applications Division, where I got into finance and worked on a lot of commodity pricing models and trader support and that kind of thing. After a brief stint overseas, came back and was a senior consultant with a small consultancy to Commonwealth Bank, and again worked in the quantitative group, pretty much sitting on the trading floor, which was in the rocks in those days, and worked with the traders quite a lot. And at the time, there was some instability with that company, so myself and a colleague decided to go out on our own and start our own consultancy. So in 1996, at the ripe old age of 24, I started a consultancy which was essentially IT and finance. So we were essentially targeting the intersection between trading floors and quant groups, doing a lot of the pricing tools, risk management. We got into real-time data lately, a bit later on, and more or less for 25 years serviced the big four banks, the next tier down, some overseas banks such as Deutsche and Merrill Lynch in Zurich. We had a partnership with the Japanese to do some pricing over there. We did a lot of funds management, acted as local agents for some analytical fund software. And after essentially getting a name for ourselves in trading risk sort of areas, we started getting drawn into the electricity space. So in 2001, we were hired to write a risk management report for the CEO of what was then Integral Energy, one of the state-owned retailers, had about 1 million customers. And we, at the time, it was just post-Enron. There was a lot of, I suppose, suspicion over energy trading and things like hedging versus strategic portfolios, and how do you adequately cater for risk. How do you actually price these very customized swap and option contracts that they were doing? There were some very crazy instruments that were being written by Snowy Hydro at the time, which back then was its own NEM region. They were so influential. And that eventually morphed into us rebuilding all of their risk systems. So we were developing the software, simulation-based earnings at risk, value at risk, credit exposure type systems. We worked with their forecasting area, their retail area, other companies such as Origin Energy. We did consulting to their risk departments, and in parallel with the financial markets side of things, where we were doing interest rate derivatives, exotic FX. We were doing a lot of model validations, risk management reporting, that kind of thing. We started doing our own commercial R&D on energy simulation engines for NEM pricing, demand, etc. Option pricing. We at the time, the derivatives market, before it became ASX Energy, was run by a company called Decipher Trade out of New Zealand, and we partnered with them to do a forward curve, which we co-branded to an energy forward curve as a benchmark for the industry. After the GFC, the banking side of things got a bit quieter, and so we tended to specialise a bit more in energy. But we were caught a bit by the privatisation push, where the government sold off most of our largest customers. So in around 2011, we sort of found ourselves in a quiet period with a lot of R&D under our belt that we didn't want to go to waste. So I started a PhD in mathematics, focusing on the problem of energy price forecasting, which I finished in 2016. And the main feature of that was to essentially take what was numerical simulations and come up with formulas to describe what was going on. And we came up with a concept based in classical mechanics on the least action principle, where we could actually sort of algorithmically work on distributions, etc., rather than just shaking lots of numbers around and using massive computers to doing it. Not after that, got into the commercial battery space with pricing, essentially optimizing battery programs for large commercial operators. We did some reports for universities. At the time, it was still a case of, is it economic to go ahead with this? We did some virtual generation type stuff. A lot of this was published in journals along the way. And not long after that, that was when I met Jitendra. And as he said, we had coffee. And at the time, I had heard of things like peer-to-peer trading and a lot of this decentralized stuff. It was all the rage. There was a few companies trying to get off the ground doing blockchain-based solutions at the time, which were getting a lot of press. And I was extremely skeptical, but we had a number of conversations, and I realized how this idea was different. It was actually rooted in the way the electricity markets worked, rather than if only they worked this way, we could do this great thing. So we started working on it together, and eventually built sort of formalised the arrangement, built prototypes, and then basically 2021 got the electricity license and got it off the ground. And since then, it's been a very I've been basically designing, building, supporting the systems, and it's been very much a case of we're building as we're growing and as we're running the systems. So we're doing things. We're having to build everything in-house because none of this has been done before. So nothing is available off the shelf that will do what we need it to do. So it's been a lot of fun building that and a massive challenge.
So let's jump in. What is Localvolts? In the simplest terms, explain what you do.
Yeah, I guess Localvolts, in terms of there's a story behind everything. The whole point of Localvolts is that electricity is something that is universal. We all use it. It's for everybody, right? With the exceptions of the parts of the world which still lacks electricity, but it's everywhere. Now, if people like you and I are spending our own capital on electricity, originally it was in the form of solar panels, then my thinking was, then we want to be in the game. Okay, if I'm going to spend some money into an industry, I want to be part of it. Okay, so what that really means is energy which was produced traditionally by a few large corporates and it got sold at a price that was told that the corporates decided to the millions of people. That's one way of things working, which is classical, all works fine. But if millions of people are also making electricity and selling electricity, then us on the buy side, who are millions of people, then there's an opportunity and a desire. The desire part, I guess, was a question mark, but we saw there was an opportunity for millions of people who want to buy electricity to be directly in touch with millions of people who are making electricity and deal with each other. That's it. Very simple. Millions of people who use electricity should be able to buy electricity from millions who produce it. And people should get out of the way to make it easy. And I should be able to do that while leave the space of energy where most of the investment is being done by individuals to the usual suspects, which I call the big corporates and things like that. So what Localvolts is about is allowing everybody to be able to choose who they want to buy their electricity from, and do it in a simple way. It doesn't matter what kind of system I have, what kind of structure I have, what kind of meter I have, where I'm located. Get rid of all the complexity. Just let me say, I want to buy from Danielle, or I want to buy from Joe, or Danielle says, I want to sell my electricity at this, and I should be able to do that. Very simple proposition.
Okay. I mean, I understand that. It's opening up the electricity market almost like it's a financial market. You get to buy and sell with whoever you want.
Now to do this, so the next step is to do this is get the complicated part, right? Being an engineer, I kind of said, well, there's a basic design principles you got to look at. Right? Now, energy is something that is heavily regulated. You cannot buy electricity unless you deal with the supply. In the whole world, it's a licensed entity. So first of all, if you want to play in the electricity game, you got to play in the license space. Secondly, the license space is occupied by a lot of heavyweights, and they're going to resist you, so you're going to be able to stand up to them. The third thing is the world is the way it is right now, everywhere. So you got to make this work within the way the world works. Like Joe was saying, this is not about trying to change the world in order to get this outcome. We said we want to give this outcome in the way the world works right now. So we do not want people to be saying, oh, you must change your meter, you must do this. No. Stay as you are, don't change anything, but we'll just give you this superpower. Okay. Now, what we find, in order for us to give this superpower to everybody, we had to do two things. First thing we had to do is we had to create a new game. We had to come up with the rules of the game to let this happen, because this way of people relating to each other in an environment where I don't really know how much energy that I'm using right now and how much energy I will expect it to use in the next 5 minutes, because that's an unknown. I can turn my TV off, or I can this. And in energy, this is a unique part of the things. You never really know how much the quantum of your trade will be. So the rules of the game have to deal with this uncertainty of what the amount that you will have to deliver. So that's one thing. The second thing is we wanted to work for everybody, and we said we wanted to do this transparently. Everybody should not, it should be all about board. Nothing should be hidden. Everybody should have access to everything. And where can we find this stuff that can make this work? Like Joe said, we looked around, nobody is doing it, nobody has done it, this stuff did not exist anywhere. So we kind of said that we have to not only design the rules of the game, we have to build the infrastructure to make this happen. So this thing was done prior to I met Joe. So for me, in the early days, the hunt was to find somebody who can take this idea at the conceptual level and certain details level of what the rules of the game is. I kind of wrote up this book called The Blueprint on the Electricity, the New Peer-to-Peer Market. It's like a 30-page document, described the rules of the game. But I said, I know it can be built, but I've got to find somebody who can build it. And then we had the coffee, and I said, I was just quite amazed. I was thinking to get somebody to understand every piece of the puzzle, I would need a team of super brainy people to work on their parts of the things. I kind of tripped over a single person who understood the whole thing plus and could build the whole thing, which was, I guess, one of those stars aligning themselves in the person of Joe. So that was really what Localvolts is and what we're trying to achieve, which is make the world of electricity accessible to everybody. Everywhere.
Okay, so are you live in market at the moment? Are you operating? What's the milestones you've achieved? Tell us more about the business from the business perspective as opposed to the technology side.
So the business perspective, we went through a number of stages, which was really to build the systems. Had its own complexity because you had to access markets. The existing connections with the existing power system industry in order to build our layer. We had a few challenges there, but we were helped by a few people along the way, and we also got lucky. We were able to do that, build the platform out. Then we released it in what we call a simulation mode, where the whole. Think of it as a gaming. Without people spending real money, they could transact and do things. We called it Localvolts version alpha. While we were doing that, we received the license, the retailer authorization from Australian Energy Regulator, which allowed us to hang up our shingle for real and to have real customers. So we started having real customers, and at this point, we are fully operational in East Coast of Australia in the national electricity market. What that means is we have customers in Queensland, we have customers in New South Wales, in the ACT, Tasmania, and South Australia. We do not have customers in Victoria because Victoria is a different licensing regime. And the Victorians felt that they had enough innovation and they didn't need us for the time being. So we said, okay, we'll come back to you when we have turned into a 300-pound gorilla, and we'll come back and apply for the license. At that time, they were interesting personality of the regulator. When we say we have customers, I guess what we mean is we have customers who buy electricity, who have customers who produce electricity. We have small customers, we have moms and dads, we have people we have businesses, we have people who have large, mid-sized power plants. We have people batteries. We have people who live in apartments who have no batteries, no solar. We've got all sorts of cut, slice, and dice people out there right now.
Okay, that's amazing. So you've got customers throughout Australia. You're operating. You're growing. What does that look like from a revenue perspective?
Yeah, we've been sort of having the classic sort of steep hockey curve things. Right now, our annualized billings is in the vicinity of $5 million at present. The interesting thing about the energy field is it is, like Joe explained, we are building out capability. We're doing new things, so there's a lot of sharp edges in the process which we still need to smoothen out. But fundamentally, the engine works, and the people want to do this. Okay. The other aspect of energy world, which is quite fascinating, is energy companies are like banks. Okay, because we are a credit provider, we buy and sell electricity. When we say we buy electricity from people, and people will sell us electricity, and they need to be comfortable that they will get paid. Okay, so being part on the wholesale side of the things, for all people who are part of the system, they must carry a certain amount of capital which is a percentage of the load that you carry, which is about 8% of your billings you need to carry as reserve capital to provide credit. Okay, so that is a capacity, financial capacity that one needs in addition to organizational capacity in order to grow. So our biggest, the reason we are at 5 million annualized revenue is not because we don't have the demand thing. It is because we cannot satisfy that demand that we have because of our capacity to provide the to provide the capital that we need to place to back up our growth, and also have a team. Like, for example, 18 months ago, we turned away $50 million worth of business because we physically did not have the credit capital to support that.
Okay, so this round that you are raising, what does it look like? If you were to raise and have the money in your bank account today, what does the next 12 to 18 months look like for you?
So our ask right now is 10 million Australian dollars. Okay. And what the use case for those 10 million Australian dollars is twofold. So we will grow our company to an annual revenue run rate of about just over $50 million in 18 months' time, the runway of 18 months' time, and be ready to hyperscale. So build up our organizational and technical and financial capacity enough, so then we really accelerate to the next level. So $10 million, 18 months runway, ARR of about $50 million, and be ready to hyperscale. Now, that $10 million, we have broken it up into, in essence, we need a third of that for maintaining reserve. We had to put up capital to support our customer base. That's about 8% of the revenue. So that's about $3 million and change. We got to put in the bank, get bank guarantees, and hand them off to the Australian energy market operator. We hope to raise that money through debt because it's really a debt instrument that we need. The rest we will use to have Joe a proper team to build out the system, and also to maintain, to do customer service and very small amount of sales and marketing, because right now the next 18 months is really, the challenge for us is to meet demand. It's not about creating demand, which we are in a very, very interesting situation.
Yeah, the demand is there, and it's a pain point for a lot of Australian households that the Australian retailers are charging too much. So the ones that have the power are looking at ways to capitalize on that. The ones that need the power are looking at better options. So this is an in-demand industry. I think you've got a great solution that's proven. You're generating $5 million in revenue, and you're turning away more business until you can satisfy that. So I think you're in a great position in terms of the raise. If any of the investors that are watching this, you want to find out more, I will connect you through to the team directly, because I think they'd love to jump on and chat about the future growth and where this company could go in the next 2 to 3 years with the right funding and the right pathway. But I think you've got a great team here. I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Thank you very much for jumping on. It's been great to chat. I will share this around to my networks. Anybody who's watched this episode who wants to find out more, please reach out.
I think one final thing I did want to leave you with is Australia. The prosperity of Australian prosperity is dependent on exports. We are a country of exports. We produce and create value more than we can consume. This is the same thing with us. Australian electricity market is the most, I guess, competitive and complex market, and that's why a lot of overseas companies in energy come to Australia, because they want to be able to play in the toughest market there is. The opportunity that what we have identified for what we do is, in fact, 44 other countries is something that we can replicate what we are doing in Australia. Just countries in Europe that we have identified where we can replicate in the manner we can replicate. And I'm right now, for example, visiting India, and there's an open access regime that's opening up over there for small businesses that are allowed to go and buy energy directly from things. And the small business segment in this country is multiple times the total population of Australia. Okay, so we're talking about a space which is bigger than Australia. So this is an Australian story that we want to export after building the foundation. So the first 18 months is about building the foundation in Australia, so we can really hyperscale in Australia and to start taking the steps overseas. Joe, do you want to add anything more to this?
Yeah, look, I think one thing in this journey that I've found fascinating has been how rapid the psychology of customers changes. So when we first set out to do this, we were trying to convince people who were saying, why would I want to trade electricity? Why would I want to do this? I just get my bill every 3 months and I pay the bill. And then we had a number of things happen in the industry. Most importantly, the price increases, and now we're at the stage where not only do people want to do it, they want their devices to do it, and so we're now moving to satisfy the demand of people who want to buy intelligent devices who will actually trade through APIs. Through our marketplace to maximize the revenue on the investments they've made. And so just in a few short years, we've gone from people who knew virtually nothing about how the markets worked under the surface to now, very sophisticated, and this is both residential and business customers, very sophisticated players who are now really pushing us to let them push the envelope and do all sorts of things with algorithmic trading, basically giving the optimization, the intelligence they have in their products, such as OEMs, etc., to giving that a marketplace to play in. So I've really enjoyed that shift and how sort of quickly that's evolved, and I think it's going to keep evolving with the technology. So the way electricity was done a few years ago is increasingly looking outdated, I think.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think the main thing that we'll think about is electricity will remain complicated. Okay, so let's not kid ourselves. Our challenge is to make it accessible to everybody. Okay, so we're not just talking about the real techno nerds. We're talking about my grandmothers. and our parents to be able to simply do that. And the way that is happening, and that's where it is happening through intelligence. It is that is the app is doing the work for you. So that is, even if you are my neighbor Sibella, who lives in an apartment in Manly, she doesn't have worry, actually her app will do the best for her. Okay, and the world of apps is, I think, people are comfortable in that space now. So this is not about, okay, you must have a battery in order to put these games. No, you consume electricity, you are in this space. And what we're about is making this stuff really easy for you. The fact that you don't just have to deal with one person trying to do business with you. We make it really easy for you. You don't even have to know the fact that there are millions of people trying to do business with you, but you should capture the benefit of millions of people fighting to give you a deal. Okay, so that's the simplicity, and that's what we need the capital for, to simplify the things that work. So that's really, without the simplicity is the simplicity from the consumer perspective. Gives scale. The simplicity gives them the value. It's the deep technology and all the mathematics that Joe talks about under the hood that is necessary to give that simplicity and that access to people. Without all that fancy maths and the designs, it won't, you can't have the iPhone without the box. You can't have the screen on iPhone without the stuff inside. We're the stuff inside. Okay, and this is all true Aussie technology. Okay, so that's really what we want to leave that with for the world.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you very much for jumping on. It's been amazing to chat and very fascinating to find out more. Anybody who wants to find out more, please reach out to my team and we can connect you through to the Localvolts team. Thank you very much, guys.